All right. Thanks, Kathy, sorry. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the 5th session of the Moonbuilders workshop. Super excited to be joined today by Jamie from the Ocean Protocol team. Just to provide some intro into this today's talk, is that data is extremely expensive to store it on chain. And we've heard actually in our previous sessions from the Graph team and Covalent team, how they provide events, like they index events to sort of like store data in a different way, basically. And so you get some numbers around this. It costs around 640,000 gas to store a kilobyte of information on Ethereum. And that's roughly $12, depending on the ETH price today. So this means that it's storing a gigabyte can be $12.6 million, if my math is correct, which is crazy, right? But data doesn't necessarily need to be online, but the access control can be online. In such a way, we can still benefit from some blockchain technologies, but without having to store the data online. And this, like in kind of like Ethereum blockchain. So today we have Jamie from Ocean, and Ocean is an open source protocol focused on the exchange and monetization of data and that database services. It uses what they call data tokens to give data providers an on-chain solution for access control to their data, what we were just mentioning before. This means that the data is stored off-chain, but the way you access the data, it's actually uses this blockchain technology. So basically, tokens can be redeemed by users who need access to this information. Back in January, we announced that Ocean Protocol is coming to Moonbeam and Moonriver, and this is because Moonbeam and Moonriver are fully Ethereum compatible. So projects like Ocean can just grab their technology stack and with little to no modifications, just modify everything, like modify a couple things so they can deploy their contracts to Moonbeam or Moonriver, and then point their solution to our network. And Moonriver just went live last week. So today it's just very on time that we have Jamie from the Ocean Protocol to explain a little bit about the protocol, how you can work with it, how you can use the Ocean.js library to interact with the Ocean stack. So yeah, take it away, Jamie.
Great, thanks a lot for the introduction. It's really very nice to be here. It's an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I'll just get started straight away. So as you already know, my name's Jamie Hewitt. I'm one of the blockchain developers here at Ocean Protocol. So in terms of our agenda today, I think hopefully we can really pack a lot in. I'll try and cover as much as I can. I'll start with just kind of introducing the problem that Ocean Protocol is trying to solve. I'll talk a little bit about the kind of key concepts behind Ocean Protocol and also the architecture as well. I'll give you a kind of introduction just in terms of on the slides in terms of how it works, and then we'll start to get stuck in with some code and start to look at how our market operates as well. So I'll do a demo of the market. I'll look at what it would take to fork the market. And I'll also do a tutorial with our Ocean.js library as well. Hopefully we'll have plenty of time for questions. I think there'll be opportunity maybe even just to kind of interrupt me as we go along if there's some really kind of urgent questions or if I've missed out something important. But yeah, let's just start with the kind of background of what we're trying to do here at Ocean Protocol. So starting out, we really found that there's quite a compelling problem statement in terms of the fact that there are enterprises out there that have got huge amounts of data, but they're not really using it very much, certainly not making the most of it. Maybe they don't have enough AI or machine learning expertise. And we've got, on the other hand, data scientists and startups who've got a lot of AI expertise, but they don't have a lot of data. And we see the data is really kind of siloed in particular organizations. And I think what we see is that in the middle, we really have a very small number of organizations. It's people like kind of obvious guys like Facebook, Google, Amazon that are really able to kind of make the most of the data that they've got. So we're trying to break through that mold and make a kind of more open data marketplace. So what we actually do as Ocean Protocol is we provide the connective layer in between the data publishers and the data consumers. And our aim is really to connect thousands and thousands of publishers and consumers together. The first way that we do that is actually enabling people to purchase data sets directly. And that happens over the blockchain, and it's done in a kind of completely secure way using data tokens, which I'll go a little bit more into detail on in a moment. But I also want to mention at this other point that buying and selling data is not the only use case for Ocean Protocol. One of the things that we do, which we really feel like is completely innovative, is something we call compute to data. So this basically involves taking your modeling algorithm and bringing it to the data. Rather than buying a data set or borrowing a data set, you actually send your modeling algorithm to the person, the publisher who has their data set. We run the data model on the data set, and what you get back is actually the predictions from the model. And that all happens behind a firewall. So in essence, that data is completely protected. It means that there is no risk of that data set being kind of copied, pasted, shared around. It also means for the first time, sensitive data sets are actually enabled people to do analysis on them because they know that there's no risk of that data being shared. So there might be, as you can imagine, data sets that for GDPR reasons can't be sold or lent out to other users, but they are enabling you to anonymously run a modeling algorithm on it and get back the results. So we feel like we've opened up a kind of huge kind of segment of the data sharing market there that other providers aren't really engaging with. So in terms of the key concepts, this now is the architecture of Ocean Protocol. So at the network level, we have the smart contracts, and they run on the Ethereum virtual machine. So they're actually compatible with any EVM compatible network, and that's why we felt like it was a completely natural collaboration to team up with Moonbeam. And we really intend on keeping that partnership going well into the future as well. Beyond that, we've got the component level. So we've got components for storing the metadata. We've got components for caching the data assets so that it makes it easier to search them. And then we've also got the libraries that are used now to actually interact with the data over the blockchain. And we've got the Ocean.js library, which I'll give a kind of introduction to, and also the OceanPy library as well. So on top of that, we have the decentralized application layer. So from our own perspective, that means it's the Ocean market, which any of you are kind of free to go and use at the moment. There's loads of great data on there already that you can consume. You also can access it on a number of test networks as well, if you want to just give it a go. But this is the actual part that we're kind of really hoping will kind of blossom, and like maybe some of the people in this call will even think that they've got ideas of things that can build on top of Ocean Protocol, maybe even forking the market as well and creating your own data marketplace. So we're very encouraging of anybody who wants to kind of fork our code and take it in a new direction. So it's worth also acknowledging the fact that Ocean Protocol doesn't actually handle the storage of the data. Now that rests in the hands of the data publisher. So you can use any legacy provider that you might want to be using or you're already using, whether it's AWS or an on-premise server, but it can also be distributed as well. So you could use IPFS, and that's also completely compatible with the Ocean market. So the data tokens are ERC20 tokens. They're basically one data token. It depends exactly how you set the pricing, but normally one data token equates to one purchase of that data asset. So the data token itself can be kind of bought or sold, and then you can exchange it for that particular data asset and download it or using it to compute. And you use that by sending it to the provider. And in terms of the pricing, that can be handled either in fixed exchange pricing, where there's a set exchange rate between the data token and Ocean tokens, or it can be done using an automated market maker, and we can have a pool, and therefore we have dynamic pricing. So in essence, it's set by supply and demand. And for our automated market maker, we're actually using Balancer. Okay, so in terms of how it works, as a publisher, you would take your data, you would have it obviously hosted somewhere, and you'd have a URL to access that data. You would then send that via Ocean.js to the provider, which would encrypt the data URL. We'd then create the data tokens, and you'd mint an initial supply of data tokens. You would then publish the DDO, which includes the metadata and also the encrypted URL on-chain, where then Aquarius, which is our service for caching the DDOs, picks it up, and that makes it easier now to search. so that it's discoverable via the market. So in terms of now, as a consumer, how you'd go about consuming the data, you'd make a request via Ocean.js. You'd say that basically you want to purchase the data token for that particular data asset. The provider would run a couple of checks in terms of, is this something that's actually allowed? We've got a couple of use cases, particularly on the enterprise side, for data assets where they want them restricted for certain reasons. On the whole, though, most assets are not restricted, so that should also be fine. And the provider would then send one data token back to the consumer. So now with that data token, it would be sent to the smart contract, and the provider will run a check that the data token has been paid. And if that gets a corresponding correct response, it will now stream the data directly to the consumer. And the data obviously then can be used by the consumer in whichever way the consumer wants to use it. The alternative at this stage is that a compute job could be run. So that's basically what I was mentioning in terms of the compute to data side of things. It's worth mentioning as well that the actual URL of the data is never exposed directly to the consumer. They'll only ever actually receive a direct download of the data, and they wouldn't be able to now share the URL to anybody else. So in terms of networks that we're currently on, we are very, very pleased to say that we're on the Moonbase Alpha network. Of course, that's like Alpha network. It's still a test net. So if anything goes wrong, send us a message, and it's still a work in progress. But we're very excited actually to be discussing the path to deploying on Moon River as well, because it's something that's very exciting. That obviously with the parachain auction going so well, that we'd like to very shortly be deploying on Moon River. But in terms of our current production networks, we're on the Ethereum mainnet and also Polygon as well. And as I said, kind of throughout the initial introduction, we've got kind of plans to also have a bridge between the networks as well, so that you'll be able to very easily move the Ocean Protocol token from the Ethereum mainnet over to the Moon River network, for example, and we'll follow up with that bridge in due course. So now let's go have a look at the market, and I'll just give a kind of brief introduction to how the market works, and then I'll talk about maybe how you might want to modify it, for example. So I'll start perhaps by showing you how to publish a data set. So you'd obviously need to get one thing maybe I'll just say before we get onto this, it doesn't require any coding to be able to go publish a data set. We designed this basically to be as user-friendly as possible, so that anybody can just come straight in here and create their data set, push it out for sale. So I'll just create a description as well. Just do that quite quickly. I'll just grab a link for a test data set. You can see it's running a check on the data here, and it's checked it's a CSV file, so it's saying that all looks good. So that's basically run by our provider to check that it's actually a data asset that is being published. So in terms of access type, you could choose it's only available for compute to data. For this example, I'll suggest we'll do it for available for download. You can see here it's giving you an example name for your data token. So Incredible Octopus obviously is an absolutely fantastic name, but I can also show, okay, we could also be, dedicated herring as well. I can put in my own name for name of the publisher, and then some tags as well, just to make it a little bit easier to discover. So yeah, just agree to the terms and conditions, and then press submit, and we're ready to go. So what you're seeing here is basically user experience that hopefully, like you guys on the call are roughly familiar with. It's just now we have to sign a bunch of transactions with MetaMask. So hopefully you've already got used to using MetaMask. You've done that a few times already. It's telling us now the gas fee for creating the token. There's just a few transactions we need to go on.
And while we wait for the transaction, Jamie, I think one thing that it's important to point out is that this marketplace interface is connected to the Moonbase Alpha testnet, and this just feels that the pop-up from MetaMask is just a regular pop-up, meaning that, hey, do you want to sign this transaction to the Moonbase Alpha testnet? And that's one feature that we've been trying to. Oh, there we go. We got the DDO failed. So if you want to try,
sure,
again.
Yeah.
So basically, the cool thing is that what you're doing is that you're interacting with a network on Polkadot that it's built on a totally different technology stack, but it still offers the same kind of like Ethereum compatibility features, such as you can go ahead and sign your transactions with MetaMask. You can connect with your MetaMask regular MetaMask wallet to the interface like you're doing here on the marketplace and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So you can actually see up here, it's telling you, nice and clearly which network that you're currently on. So that makes it nice and straightforward. Hopefully it'll work this time. As I mentioned just at the top of the introduction, it's still in alpha. So bear with us if there's any technical hiccups as we go through. It looks like it's working this time. It will run obviously faster than this, depending on which network that you're on. So there's a few things we can do to kind of speed that up. But yeah, I think that will go through. But I can also show you exactly what it will look like once it's published as well.
Well, in the meantime, we can actually. I had a question that it just came up because there was like a lot of things that we need to like unwrap, right? And the first thing that I was curious is, so you're using ERC20 tokens. That's what Ocean calls data tokens, right? And so the questions that I had around this is that why did you use ERC20s and not ERC721s? And is it because the interface is simpler and it's more commonly known, or is it also because of the compatibility with current AMAs?
That's a good question. So, I mean, the core of the reason actually just goes back to what is the original use case of ERC20 tokens. So, an ERC20 token, for anybody who doesn't know, is a fungible token, meaning that each token in itself has a like-for-like value. And that's why we see all of the stable coins using the ERC20 standard. So within Ocean Protocol, an ERC, so the data token actually represents the opportunity to consume that data. So that's why it's kind of interchangeable, is because one token represents one ability to consume whoever actually holds that data token. So
exactly. So the difference is that each data that it's published will have its own ERC20 tokens, but within a data token, it doesn't really matter if I hold one and you hold one. They both provide access to the same data, and that's why it's a fungible asset. Exactly.
And one of the things that you also have as an option when you're publishing data is also set how long you want someone to be able to access that data set for after they've purchased the data token. So once they've exchanged it for the data assets, you can set a time limit. So maybe one data token actually represents 1 month worth of consumption of that data, and then a month later they'd have to purchase an extra data token.
Nice.
But actually, given the fact that you mentioned ERC20 tokens, sorry, 721 tokens, I may as well say at some point as well that one of the things we have in future plans for the ERC 721, which is the standard for non-fungible tokens, is actually using that now as a representation of the ownership of the original data set. So that's something we've got in the pipeline. So that now is a completely unique token, because only one person actually holds the rights to that data set. But what it means once that's implemented is that you could actually go on to sell the rights to that data asset to someone else over the blockchain. And because they own the 721 token, now they can actually say, look, I'm the rightful owner of this. So that's perhaps more what the ERC 721 is kind of ideally placed to do.
That's super interesting. And so going back to the data token really quick, so is it like a no decimal ERC20, I guess? Because there's no way of saying like 1.5 data tokens, or it has decimals, and what do they represent?
Yeah, there's 18 decimals for the data token. And that's actually very important if I kind of demonstrate now the pricing. So once you've kind of published your data token and you've got your data asset published, now you can choose to set the pricing. So kind of as I explained before, you've got the option of doing dynamic pricing or fixed pricing, or even something new that we've got going is actually free pricing, which is one of the advanced features you have to kind of implement from the market side. But what you'll see here now is the fees. So you can see the fees are kind of tiny fraction of the data token. So that's why it's very important that now they've got decimals, is so that you can actually take that 0.1% of the data token and actually send that fee to the owner. And I'll just explain briefly what each of these fees means. So you've got the marketplace fee, which is the one that is actually going to the organization or the individual that set up that market. So if anybody on this call sets up their own market after this, they can create their own marketplace fee, and they'll receive that fee themselves. The community fee is actually what now is received by the Ocean Protocol community, and it's dispersed via the Ocean DAO in a series of grants that anybody can apply to. And it's for aspects of kind of improving the overall ecosystem. So maybe they've got new projects on the go that really do nice things for the ecosystem in terms of promoting Ocean Protocol. And then you've also got the swap fee as well. So the swap fee is actually distributed amongst people that have actually contributed to the pool. So basically liquidity providers. That acts as an incentive for people to provide liquidity on that token. And the fact that this is now adjustable means that you can actually try and increase the incentive for people to contribute to that pool as well. So we also see it as a way of curation as well. So the tokens that have the largest pool normally are actually the highest quality assets and the ones that people actually download most frequently. So if you provide an incentive for people to kind of join that pool, it also kind of helps, almost like advertise your project to people that it's something of good quality. Yeah. So and then in terms of fixed pricing, that's obviously quite simple as well. You just set the amount of Ocean tokens that you want in exchange for your data token. Yeah, and then I'll show you briefly what it looks like. Again, I can create this pricing here. And then I'll show you what it looks like once it's all published as well. So again, just a couple of transactions that we need to sign for that to go through. So I've created a fixed rate exchange for that token. And now just signing the second transaction. But while I'm doing this, let me just show you, for example, the actual code for the market. Because I think it's nice for guys to think about whether or not they want to actually clone the market or fork it. So if you just come to our GitHub, which has absolutely everything of ours on it, you're welcome to come and fork anything that you want. So this is the marketplace code, and we've got a bunch of tutorials in terms of like how to get started with it. This is just the next transaction in terms of that pricing. But if you want to come and fork this, it's just as easy as clicking on it and saying fork. So obviously I've already done that already. So I've got a fork here. And then if you want to now create your own version and start using it, you can just copy and paste this URL. And then if I open the terminal, you can just do, which I'm sure everyone is very used to doing, just git clone that market. And now you're free to go and start making any edits that you want to do on the market. So I'll just quickly come back here. So that's successfully set the pricing now on that asset. So I'm just reloading the page so you can kind of see what that looks like in terms of the asset. It takes a little bit while to update, so you might get an error message initially. But now that's an asset that's there and ready to be consumed. So you can kind of browse this. You can read the very, very interesting description that I've kind of thrown in there. And if you think that you want to go and buy that token, you can click buy over here. Again, we'll have to kind of sign a couple of transactions. I think, yeah, it looks like we've got a very small little error on the test network, so it's not working like perfectly, absolutely every time. But anyway, I think you get the idea in terms of that.
We have a question regarding the marketplace, basically it says how much. It's by DNB Wizard. How much liquidity is currently flowing through the marketplace? Many folks using it. When do you plan to come out of beta?
That's a really great question. So so I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but if you just Google us on Etherscan, you'll be able to see the. I think actually, sorry, I've got the answer right here. I don't know why I said that. You've got it right in the footer. It just occurred to me as I was saying that. So total value locked is like. Let me just switch to mainnet briefly, just to check that. But when we plan on coming out of beta, that's another question that's like kind of hotly discussed. But like I think it's something that's perhaps in the works for later this year. We've basically got V4 coming out soon, and that's when now we're going to have hopefully that integration with the ERC 721 tokens that I mentioned, and that'll be hopefully the time that we come out of beta. So yeah, okay. So now on mainnet, this is the total value locked, which is 3 million euros across 419 dataset pools. So that kind of gives you the amount that we got kind of locked at the moment, and hopefully that answers the question. So you can come back here and check to see it grow in next couple of weeks or next couple of months.
Yeah, exciting stuff for sure.
Yeah. Let me quickly just show you some in terms of the market code, because I've got the market running. I want to just basically show how easy it is just to come and change anything in particular that you might want to change. So for example, I think one of the things that I mentioned is the fact that if you created your own version of the market, you want to come and collect your own fees. So that's maybe even the very first thing you might want to come and change if you're forking the market and you're publishing it with your own name and URL. So at the moment, this is where the address is for the market that we're publishing. You can also take this particular env, and if you set it in your environmental variables, okay, like this one here, we can actually set our own marketplace fee, like so. And you obviously need to just copy and paste your Ethereum address to be able to do that. And then you'll start earning the fees directly from your own marketplace, which is quite a nice thing to start doing. And then even in terms of, you might want to change the name of the market. If we wanted to come in and call this Moonbeam market, we obviously can do. Let me even look, see if there's anywhere else we want to change it. I think that should be okay. So if I just, maybe I can also just quickly, so I've got this running here to actually, I mean, you can do, they've got a bunch of scripts that you'll find in the package JSON. npm run start, npm run build. We've got also test scripts as well. For this use case, I'll just do npm run start. It does a kind of quick build of the market, and we should be able to see that change immediately, as long as I saved it. And what I'm kind of showing you here is, this is basically the easy way of kind of getting started and starting to build on top of Ocean Protocol. So you can actually more or less copy and paste everything that we've done, and kind of take it from there and make your own edits and kind of build on top of it. Maybe even you want to have something, slightly niche that you want to do in terms of who you're selling data to, or who you want to kind of advertise that data to. The other thing that you can do is you can actually use our libraries, kind of build your own project from the ground up. And once this is finished, I'll kind of show you how to do that as well, because it's also very, very easy to kind of get started and to use our code as you'll find in a moment. So this is just taking a couple of minutes to build. I think there's one more thing. Maybe I can quickly show you something else in terms of our code base before we get started on that. So what I've got here is something called Barge. So you notice like all the names of all the different components from Ocean Protocol have got very kind of aquatic themes. So we've got Aquarius, Barge, like a lot of different things relating to the sea or the ocean. So what Barge is for basically is setting up your own local environment in terms of running all of the Ocean Protocol components locally. So if you wanted to get started with a local development, having your own local blockchain, which is using Ganache, you can come in. All you need to do is just git clone Ocean Protocol Barge, enter into the Barge folder, and then use the start command here to get Barge started. And now you've got all the advantage of using Ganache local development. It's not charging you any gas fees. Yeah, you can really very quickly, all the transactions go through very quickly, and it's a great place to kind of start developing, and getting started. So while the market builds, I mean, there's only a very simple change that I did, which was just change the name of the market, but I don't want to stay on that too long.
Let's bring a couple of questions while you wait for the market. So, well, actually, the first one is a comment by a person named Jay. Basically, would you do a brief at the end in regards to interested ambassadors? So basically, what I had is Kathy's going to post a couple links. So we actually did our investigations before the presentation, and we have a link to the Ocean Protocol community that Kathy just put in the chat, and also the Moonbeam ambassadors link. So people that are interested to becoming ambassadors in either Ocean Protocol or Moonbeam can check those links out. And the second question is from Moritz, Data Whale. That's a great name for the talk. And we're trying to integrate Ocean.js into our React Native code, and we're encountering some troubles. Can you recommend us how we can integrate the marketplace on our mobile application? Obviously, we want to collect our 0.1% fee as well for any trade via the mobile application. Our beta app is called Alga. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so in terms of kind of troubleshooting that, first of all, on the ambassadors program, I think it's a really great idea to sign up and becoming ambassador. Connected to that, we've got the Ocean Academy that's actually set up by a bunch of community members. So you can actually, if you Google Ocean Protocol Academy, you'll find that as a resource for learning in a huge amount of detail everything you need to know about Ocean Protocol to really help yourself get started on that. And that's really kind of works in tandem with the ambassadors program. And I think the other great avenue for anybody who's interested in becoming an ambassador is just turning up to our Ocean DAO town halls, because that's really where the kind of live discussion happens in terms of the future of Ocean Protocol, and you can kind of pick up quite quickly in terms of what's going on there. And that kind of also segues nicely into the question, more technical question about troubleshooting someone's code. So I think that probably is something that it's best we maybe take offline. But you'd be able to reach out to me on Discord. But we also got a bunch of the other kind of core developers who are always on Discord. And we're always happy to kind of look at new projects and kind of promote people in that way. If you haven't done already, I'd really recommend you to start looking into the Ocean DAO grants program, because it might be that what you're doing is something even we'd be interested in giving a grant to, and it can even help you financially. We previously had a program called Ocean Shipyard, which was a lot more kind of mentoring and kind of helping people in terms of step-by-step troubleshooting any problems they have. But we've now rolled the Ocean Shipyard program into the Ocean DAO. So that's also now, if you're part of the Ocean DAO, you'll also get a lot of ongoing help as well as the kind of the financial input. So they kind of I think maybe even send me just a message with your GitHub, and I can have a look at it and start kind of suggesting things to help with regards to that React project. If you haven't looked at it already, we already have a React library specifically for using React rather than just going straight in with Ocean.js. Hopefully that's enough on that. But like, ask another question and interject if there's anything else that you want me to add on that. All I was showing here basically is the fact that it's pretty easy to start modifying the markets. All I did was just change it to Moonbeam market, and I changed the address so a different person starts collecting the fees. And we've already got that up and running, and it's nice and easy to deploy. For anybody that's deployed a React web application before, you can use anything that you're used to using, whether it's like Versal or any of the other ones like Surge or anything like that. It's easy to deploy. So you don't necessarily have to be an expert in blockchain to be able to get started with this. You just need a bit of web expertise and you can get your own market started. But I think now may be a good time to try and get onto the Ocean.js side of things. Because that kind of gives you a really good introduction point to actually how all of those components actually work. So what I've got here is I've actually already got Barge running in a terminal. And what we basically want to do is just start a new project. So I'll just start it in the desktop. So we'll just call it workshop. Already exists. Okay. Let's just call it workshop 2. Okay, so we'll just go into workshop 2. And now we just create a new Npm project. So we'll just do Npm init. And it'll ask us all the kind of bunch of normal kind of startup questions just to kind of get this going quickly. I'll just take all the defaults and we'll say, yes, that's all okay. Okay, so now in a new window, I'll just open up that project that I just started. So just go to desktop and then workshop 2. So the first thing that you need to do is actually install the dependencies. So easiest way of doing that is just to go into the package.json file and I've just pasted them in just for simplicity. So you've got, I'll just quickly run npm install while I talk about what each of those do, which is the first place to start. So you've got the contracts that you need to import. You've got now, this is the Ocean.js library, and we'll import a bunch of kind of useful functions and objects from the Ocean.js library. And then we've got Web3.js, which perhaps like some of you guys have already used some kind of blockchain development before, you'd be quite used to using Web3.js. And that's how we actually interact with the blockchain. So while that's actually getting set up, I'll show you how to create a new config file. And just do it like so. I think just to save a little bit of time, and hopefully we can leave a bit more room for questions, I'll just copy and paste the different parts of the code that I need. So what now you can see here is, okay, so now, like I said, we're introducing the config helper that we're importing from the Ocean.js library, importing Web3. We're creating a new default config object. And also, we're now pasting these localhost URLs. So that's now the network URL, which is actually where Ganesh is running. That one, you could, if you want to start using Moonbeam or anything else, that's what you would basically change, just simply that URL there. And that would work, as it should. And then you've got the URL for Aquarius, which is used for caching the data assets, and then provider as well. So the next step that I'll need to do is actually I'll need to paste in the contract addresses into that config file. So when you run Barge, it automatically saves the contract addresses to this local file here. So it basically creates a hidden folder in your home directory, and then you've got the address.json there. So all we're doing is just doing a simple readout of that file. And now these are the addresses of each of the contracts. So I think, yeah, in terms of the actual content of these smart contracts, that maybe is best saved for another day. But to put it simply, the data token factory is what is actually creating the data tokens. And then we've got the other smart contracts as well. One for creating the pool in terms of the balancer pool and the fixed rate exchange, and also creating the metadata. This is the location where the Ocean ERC20 token contract is. And then the dispenser contract is for now giving away free data tokens if that's something that you wanted to do with your data set. So just to get that started, I can just paste those straight in. And that works straight away. It's still installing the dependencies there. So while that's happening, I'll just create a new index.js. Okay, so now the first thing that we want to do is actually create our own data token. Okay, so dependencies now are installed. So I'll just paste in there the code that you need for simply getting started by creating data tokens. And as you can imagine, that's the real core part of the functionality that you're seeing on the market when we click publish, is creating these data tokens. So again, it's importing the data token factory ABI, which is basically the contract. And we're using a couple of things that we're importing from the Ocean.js library. And then we're also using that config file that we've just set up in order to be able to get that started. So accounts, this basically is just reading out the accounts that set up for us when we start up Barge. And then we're just assigning them to our friends, Alice and Bob. And then we can just simply console log their addresses out so we can see that that's worked. And now we'll say, okay, create new data token. So we create, first of all, the object here. So we've got the contracts and the ABI, and also we've got the instance of Web3 we're using. And now we actually create the data token itself. So this is the name of the data token, the initial supply. We've also got the symbol of the data token as well. This blob here is actually the address of the provider that we'll be using. So that's the local one for now. So if we just save that and then run it, we should see ourselves creating our own data token for the first time. And
so if I may interject really quick here, just to clarify.
Sure.
So basically what we're doing with this Ocean.js is kind of similar to what the market is doing, but this is more, for the code savvy people, let's say it like that, right? The marketplace is for anyone that has data and want to use it. And this is more for people either developing apps, right, or doing something with Ocean Protocol from a code's perspective.
Exactly. So yeah, I think I was basically trying to say before, you've got maybe the kind of easy way of getting started, which is forking the market and maybe making some kind of changes in terms of the front end, and you can change the styling, you can change whatever is part of the React components. Or even now you've got a really kind of innovative idea for something completely different to the market that you want to use. You might now want to start using the Ocean.js library and building it from the ground up. Even if you don't want to build something from the ground up and you actually just want to modify the market, it's very useful to actually get an understanding of how it works, because when you go into the market code, you'll see all of these same things repeated, like datatokens.create, and you'll have a good understanding of how they work. So that's why it's kind of useful to go through this. And if you go on to our, let me just quickly show you on our GitHub, we've got in Ocean Protocol, in terms of Ocean.js, we've got a bunch of tutorials up there that run you through how to do each of these things, like the quick starts. So a couple of different flows. We've got the kind of beginner's guide that even tells you, okay, what is an ERC20 token? What is a smart contract? Starts you off, if maybe you're even new to coding, you've got all the code snippets there, you can just copy and paste them. You've then got a simple flow as well. and you've got a marketplace flow as well. So it kind of like the marketplace flow basically gives you everything you would need to actually create your own market from the ground up. And I highly recommend it because at the moment I feel like I'm going to go through it quite quickly. For anybody that's interested, I'd really recommend kind of going over to GitHub and kind of looking through these guides. If you've got any issues with these or any questions, raise them on either Discord, or if it seems like it's a genuine problem with the guide, you can just create an issue on GitHub, and I'll probably just respond to you directly and try and fix it as soon as possible. So yeah, like if it seems like I'm going through quickly, like all of this same code is actually there in the quick start guides as well. So I'll just jump over to the next next aspect that you would want to do once you've created your data token, which is actually sending some data tokens. First of all, minting data tokens and then sending them. So if I just paste that in, you can see now the very limited amount of code that's actually required to mint the data tokens, which is actually just this one line. But you can now see what I'm doing is I'm actually waiting for the transaction hash to be returned, and I'll console log it. That's just another way of checking that everything has actually gone through okay. And then the next thing that I'm doing is I'm actually checking now the balance of Alice of that data token. And these are actually methods in the smart contract that we use to check the balance. And that's one of the required functions actually of any ERC20 tokens. That's a fairly straightforward check. So if I just save that and run it, we should hopefully now see, okay, there's something I forgot to do before I did this, is we actually have to tell Ocean.js about the smart contracts as well. So this basically just setting an environmental variable inside your environment as you're running it, just to tell it where the contracts are. If I run that again, hopefully it should work this time. So yeah, there you go. You've got the transaction hash, and that's the same. Obviously, you can't look it up on Etherscan, but if you're running it now on like Rinkeby or even any of the other test nets, you could look that up on Etherscan and see it go through. And you can now see Alice's balance as well. So we've kind of successfully minted some data tokens and sent them to Alice. So next thing I'll very, very quickly show is actually sending data tokens from Alice to Bob, because Alice and Bob are good friends. So sorry, I just and that as it is. So let me just quickly explain. That's datatoken.transfer is now the function that you're using. Obviously, passing in the token address. You're saying now who you want to send it to. So that's the account, which is Bob. We decided we want to send him 50 tokens, which is the amount. And it's sending from Alice's ID. So that's actually all that's required to send those data tokens. But again, I'm going through the process of also waiting for the transaction hash and then also checking both Bob and Alice's balance before we go on, just so we know that everything is working as we proceed. And we can see here, okay, Alice has given away 50 of her data tokens, and Bob has also got now got 50 tokens, which is great. And that is all happening on your local blockchain instance. So I think the next thing I'll show you basically is publishing a data set.
So before we go to the next,
sure.
I mean, Jamie, just a quick question. It is really nice that you provide wrapper kind of like functions or methods to interact with data tokens and other things, right? So one question that I had, for example, for the data token object, are the methods the same as they're named on the smart contract, or like, for example, where you get documentation around all the methods that are available in the data token and so on?
Yeah, they're the same name. So if you look at the I mean, for these ones actually in particular, what we're using is I can tell you it's just a normal ERC.
I understand, but it's just like they're exactly the same as the function, same that you would expect in the normal regular ERC20 interface, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So if you go into the contract, and the thing is, I mean, I could show you now, but maybe it's not necessary. If you go to Open Zeppelin and look at their ERC20 contract, that's the contract that we're actually using for the data tokens. So if you look at that, you'll see all of the functions that are part of that contract, like getting the balance, for example, or transfer from. All of those are actually part of that contract. So in terms of our contracts, we have one called, I mean, we have basically a template contract, which is this one that we're importing here, datatokens template. And that basically is inheriting the library from the Open Zeppelin standard. The reason for using that is actually just for security, because those guys have had that thing absolutely battle tested. And complexity is the enemy of security, so there's no need to kind of rewrite it. We're just inheriting what they've already kind of written and proven to be highly secure. And like for anything that's going to now hold money, it becomes quite a big target for hackers. So we just simply inherit that smart contract, and we use that as a template. And all the changes in terms of the data token factory is it's just inputting these values that we've stipulated here. So the owner, again, we're using the is ownable library from Open Zeppelin to stipulate that Alice is the owner of that data token contract. It sets the initial supply and also the name and the acronym for that token as
Ticker,
well.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
So that's all that changes. Otherwise, it's just a straight off the shelf contract. Yeah, hopefully that kind of explains that a little bit. I kind of understand also probably there are a lot of people on the call that maybe haven't written a smart contract before, or maybe it's not super familiar. So I mean, that's something
my question was related to like, for example, data token create, it's not a standard method, right? So it's not, you know what I mean? So like, how do we know all the methods that are available in the data token object when you create it? I mean, balance makes sense, and transfer makes sense, but all the available methods,
Okay, that's actually a good question, because like transfer is something that's part of the ERC20 token. But like, okay, now for create, that is coming, that's coming from the Ocean.js library. Exactly. So best thing to do on that, if you just go to the docs, if you just Google Ocean Protocol docs, you'll then find the docs for the Ocean.js side of things. And that now gives you all of the functions, absolutely everything that you can use from the Ocean.js library. We've got the same thing for, and I think you just shared the link there, which is great. We've got the same thing for OceanPy and also all of the other libraries that we've got as well. So that's a really good place to start in terms of just checking everything that you've got that's available kind of off the shelf. So I think like maybe I'll kind of quickly show the kind of process of publishing a data token, which let me just show what the data looks like here. So this that you're now looking at is actually kind of equating to what I showed before on the market. In terms of, the type, which is a data set. The other option would be that you could actually publish an algorithm. We've got the name. If we wanted to, at this point, we could also add in any of the optional parts of the metadata as well, like the tags, anything along those lines. We've got the date it's created, the author, and also the license. And then we've also got the content as well. And you can stipulate the content type. And we've got a URL there to the actual data set itself. So over in the index.js, we just have to now import that data object that we've got. And then we need to, I'll just paste something and then talk you through it. We have now here the code for actually creating, publishing the data asset. So here I've set the price in terms of data tokens. So that says 10, but I could also just set it to 1. And what we're saying there is how many data tokens are actually needed to purchase this data set. We've got the timeout as well. So this is what I kind of mentioned before in terms of the fact that you can actually set a timeout so that people are not able to use that data set indefinitely. They can actually be restricted after a couple of, whether it's a week or a month, and then they have to purchase it again. So I've just set it to 0 there, which will default to not having a timeout. And then we create first of all, the access service attributes for the data token, which basically is those things that I've just mentioned in terms of the price, the publish date, and the timeouts. And then that's placed as an object into the DDO. So essentially, DDO includes all of the metadata associated with that particular data asset. And then we call the function, which is ocean.assets.create, which will create that asset within the Ocean protocol system. And what we get back is a DID, which is used to actually identify that asset. And that's now what's used if you want to go and purchase that asset, or if you want to create a pool or contribute to the pool, you'll have to use that DID. So I'll just create that and then console log it out there so it can be seen nice and clearly. So if I just run the file again, we can now see we've got our DID, which shows us that we've successfully published that data asset. So in terms of next steps beyond that, the next thing that you obviously might want to do is be able to actually download the data set. So that's something that Bob might want to do, given the fact that Alice was the one that actually published the data sets. So I've just thrown in the code there that will, first of all, we've got to wait for Aquarius to cache the assets. I put in a very simple little bit of code that basically just says wait 35 seconds. So that's just to give us enough time to make sure it's actually being cached by Aquarius. Like in a production system, what we have is a function for basically calling and checking to see that it's been published. But that's just to kind of simplify things. And then when we say resolving that asset, is actually requesting the metadata from Aquarius, so that we're actually getting the DDO directly. And then all we have to do is create an order for that asset, which you can see here. So I'm console logging the actual transaction, the process of the order. And then the final aspect is actually just to call the download function. And what I've specified here is just a local folder to save that data in once that's gone through. And then finally, at the end, I'm just checking Bob's balance at the end to just check that it has actually consumed his data token as it's been run. And then just console logging that as well. So if I just quickly run that. Okay, it says cap exceeded, which actually means I probably need to restart barge, which I don't know if we're finishing on time. I don't know if I'll have time to do that, but I can quickly try and do that as we're running. I think what you saw there is actually how simple it is to start barge, which I've just quickly shut it all down, and then just using this command just to get it up and running again. So that's also worth just demonstrating. There's a whole bunch of options that you'll see in the documentation for barge, which is also on the GitHub, which kind of explains what these things mean. So I've said, okay, no dashboard needed, and I've also set a second provider as well. And then you've got all the logs for everything that kind of is setting up in that process. So here we've got all of the available accounts and the private keys that you can use to test that out. That's the mnemonic for using the wallet. And now it's compiling the contracts that you actually need. And as you can see, it's actually grabbing here those Opal and Zeppelin libraries that I mentioned before. Opal and Zeppelin is a fantastic resource for anybody that is looking to create their own blockchain project because they create fantastic libraries there. So it takes a little bit of a moment basically to get everything up and running in terms of Elasticsearch and deploying the provider. The process it's doing at the moment is actually compiling the smart contracts. So once that's been deployed, and it's almost done just at the moment. You'll find what we'll have new addresses for our contracts, and you can actually see that they're being written there. Before it's actually operational, we need to have the logs for Aquarius running. So that'll take just a little bit beyond that. But while that's actually happening, I'll just show you one other aspect that is useful for anybody trying to use anything in development. One of the neat things you can do while you're using Barge is actually to create Ocean tokens for yourself. So that's actually what's happening on this line here. So you can see it's saying datatoken.mint, and it's using ocean.pool.ocean address. And what we're doing here is we're creating 10,000 Ocean tokens, and we're sending them to Alice's address. So that's very, very useful now in development. You can create as many Ocean tokens as you feel like you might need. And you can actually use them for testing purposes. So let me just check the contract addresses there. And you can see now they've changed because we've had to redeploy Barge. So I can actually copy and paste those and put them back into my config file. So let me just paste that. Okay, and then if I just run this again, hopefully this time it should work. So here we are. We've got our DID for the data asset that we've published. At the moment, what it's doing is just doing that weighting that we kind of set as part of the process.
While we wait, let's put in another question if that's all right with you. So this is from Cameron, and why do you call it a data token and not just a token, right? What is the difference?
So, I mean, essentially, like a lot of things in blockchain, you can kind of call it whatever you want to call it. You can even call it a coin or a currency or a token or a data token. The reason we call it a data token is because there is that explicit link between the use case of the token and also the data. So there's an explicit link there between that ERC20 token can be used to purchase that data. And that's simply why we call it a data token.
I think it makes sense, right? Because it's just like, it's such a specific use of an ERC20 token that it's not, the common use that people use it for, that it makes sense to just like put a different tag on top of it, right? And the data market, it's worth like $1 trillion and it's expected to worth a lot more, right? So it's like a very specific use case for this data market, and it's just not like a regular ERC20 token. So I totally agree.
Yeah, exactly. But also, because it is following the ERC20 standard, it can still be used like any other ERC20 token. So you can create, like I've said, we've got pools on Balancer, but you could also create a pool on any other automated market maker if you wanted for that data token. It's compatible with all of the wallets that you're used to using. So it kind of like, use case could go beyond being just a data token, but that's really the kind of explicit purpose of why it exists. So that's kind of how it got that name. But anyway, as we were chatting, I've just kind of run it again since starting Barge again. And you can see now that what we've done, we've got the transaction for Bob making that purchase. We can see Bob's data tokens have been decreased by 1. And over here now, what I have in the location that I specified is the actual data set that we kind of Alex published before, and now Bob has just downloaded. So yeah, some very, very simple example data that we've got in there, but it kind of shows that it works and how you can kind of get this up and running yourself if you wanted to create your own kind of similar style application.
Yeah, I really like that you created this library, because a lot of times you have such complicated kind of like protocols, and you have to figure it out yourself how to interact with them. And this library, and by the way, I did put the documentation link for Ocean.js on the chat, and it is so useful to have, because you have all the methods that each variable has within it, and it's like so easy just to see, oh, for my data provider, oh, I have this function to create the trans, so it's like a lot easier. And you even have like the from way and other like Web3 utils stuff in there as well. So it's super, super useful to have.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully that is useful. And it's, like I say, it's not the only library that we've got. So we've got a library specifically for React, and we've also got one for Python as well. So yeah, particularly for some of the data scientists that are on the call, they might even be more comfortable using the Python library. So we're trying to create it in such a way that it's very easy for people to build on top of. Yeah, and we're also trying to do our best with the documentation, like you said, to try and make it easy for people to kind of like, get to grips with it and to understand exactly how to use it. So I don't know, I think like we might be running over time just a little bit, but if we're okay, I'll just show one very final thing in terms of this kind of coding side of the demonstration, which is actually how to now create a pool and dynamic pricing for an asset. So it basically uses this function here, which is the ocean.pool.create. And we set a data token amount that we want to set in terms of dynamic pricing, and the weight of the data token in proportion to the amount of Ocean tokens in that pool. So that means we could then actually calculate how many Ocean tokens you need to contribute to that pool. And then I just console logged that out. So it should actually be 5 tokens, I think. The 5 Ocean tokens you need to contribute. Checked again, the balance of Alice before I publish it. And then here we're actually setting the fee that goes to the pool contributors, or the liquidity providers. So that's the exact same thing that you saw in the market when you saw that I was showing that you can kind of increase that or decrease it to give more of this incentive for people to contribute. But what we're now seeing here is actually how you create that in the code. And that just slots straight in here at the end when you're doing the ocean.pool.create function. So it includes Alice's address, token address, and then those other things that I mentioned. So data token amount and weight, and then also the Ocean amount as well. So I'll just quickly run that. So save it and then run it. And we should, at the end, basically we'll see the pool address that we've created. Again, like it'll just wait another like 35 seconds while we're waiting for it all to kind of cache in the system. But then hopefully it will just show exactly how it works. Are there any other questions that you want to jump in and ask?
I think we're good. I mean, there's no questions from the audience, and I just want to put a comment there that I think it's like so interesting that you guys are like using so many concepts from like so many different places, right? You have like DeFi concepts such as like a balancer AMA, and then you have like this data thing as well. It's just like it's hard to wrap your head around everything that is going on, right? You work with it for a while, but for me that I come from a different space, it's just like a lot of like stuff that you have to wrap your head around.
Yeah, I've missed out something here, I can tell. I don't know if it's worth me quickly correcting that or not. But basically, we just need to define Web3. Which is Web3 here. Okay, so I think that should now work. But yeah, to kind of answer that question, that's actually the thing I think I love most just in general about working in blockchain, because it's so kind of multidisciplined. You really end up learning about a lot, like applying a lot of different skills. Yeah, it's not just, well, I mean, it ranges from the full aspect from, working on the front end side of things, like we're showing in the market. Like now you can, use React, and we're also using Gatsby there in terms of technology. And then on the back end side, we're also using, Solidity smart contracts as a completely different discipline to use. You've also got to think about the kind of tokenomics of the whole thing, like the economic incentives for the users, like I said, like how you actually set these fees. When you're creating your own market, when you're forking the market, you can even change the marketplace fee. You could have it like 25% if you wanted to. But then that might be a real disadvantage, and it might make people think that they don't even want to use your version of the market. So like there's so many things from like economics to even like we're often thinking very much from the perspective of data scientists as well, because that is kind of one of our real target user bases. So thinking about like what type of algorithms they're running, how we can make it easier for them to run. So you can see after I just did the definition of Web3 there, we've now got a successful pool that we've created. And that's all kind of running perfectly nicely. So I understand that was pretty quick. But I've got, I can even just create a Git repo of this and just upload it and send you guys the link if you want to see exactly just what I've done in this tutorial live on the workshop.
Well, I mean, the good thing is that they will be able to access this anytime they want, because this workshop is recorded. And the good thing I think is that we cover a lot of material, right? So I mean, we even more that we wanted originally. But I always think it's great because there are some good questions and some good interactions, and we covered everything at the end. So yeah, I think it's a good thing to have a GitHub repo, but I think that it's good that they can just review it whenever they want in the future.
Sure. Okay, great. So I mean, that's all I've got in terms of preparation. I realize we've gone, I think, about at least 10, 12 minutes over, so I apologize about that. But yeah, if you got any more like extra questions or anything you want to like kind of send me, like I say, like Discord's a great place to reach out. Even on GitHub isn't so bad. Like if you want to suggest improvements, you can open issues on our GitHub. But yeah, that's hopefully everyone's enjoyed the workshop.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Jamie. Thanks a lot for the Ocean Protocol team for participating in this workshop. There's also like a lot of wrap your hands. You have to wrap your head around like so many different concepts, but it's also really cool to see all this. And yeah, it's also cool to see that you guys are going to deploy it on Moonriver and Moonbeam. So excited to have you here today. Thanks once again, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Kathy's already blasting the chat with all like the stuff from Ocean, Telegram, Discord, GitHub, and their doc side, and from our side of Moonbeam, all the stuff as well. Thanks once again for joining, and yeah, have a great rest of the week.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Yeah.
Bye.